We are here for a special weekend edition. Why did you take your glasses off? Put those back on.
I
You
don't
look
want
so
people
cool
to
with
know
those
I'm old.
glasses on. Oh
No.
my gosh. Weekend edition of EV Obsession. Joe looked so cool in his hipster glasses, and then he just decided he's afraid to look old. Poor
Look at
Joe boy.
this.
No,
Look
it
at
doesn't
this.
look old. You look younger with those on.
I
You
look
look like a
younger with
hipster.
these on.
You look like a 25-year-old hipster at a coffee shop.
Good. I hope my opinions are equally valid.
That's not what you should hope for, Joe.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Well, we're here and yeah, let's just jump into it, right? Do you have any other notes before we jump in?
Well, I love how you're calling this a weekend edition. It's being recorded on the weekend. It'll probably go live Monday or Tuesday. So happy Monday,
Well,
kids.
well, yeah, it is weekend edition for recording, which I thought we should just note right up front. We're working on the
Sure.
weekends for you all, but I also thought we might publish it on the weekend,
We
like
might. We might
tomorrow,
do that.
or
Sure. Why
we
not?
might go out Monday. We'll see, Sunday or Monday.
I got to tell you, I love this because during the weekday shows, you are like t-shirt, like athleisure kind of schlubby guy. And then Saturday morning, 8 a.m. sharp, he shows up with like a collared shirt, pressed, clean shaven. Look at this guy. This guy's a professional. This is who you want as your
Yeah.
CEO of your burgeoning clean tech media empire. This is the guy right here.
Well, during the weekday, I got to get up, get dressed, go out, come back, and then, I'm wearing my normal, real world clothes. And Saturday, I'm like in my pajamas, like, oh, I got to put something on. I put on this nice collared shirt to look professional.
That's it. That's it.
And Joe's like,
Meanwhile, I'm in my pajamas. You guys are lucky I'm wearing pants.
yeah. And if you like this, then don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. We're here to not just inform you, but also entertain you. And
47 episodes in, we finally remembered to ask people to like and subscribe.
I just
Oh
got it
man,
out the
I
way
feel like
right before we start working. Once we get into the stories, I always forget. All right. All right. So the first story, I finally got around to doing our third quarter US EV sales update, which is unique to anyone else in the world because not only do we put out the sales, and I have estimated by highly informed Tesla sales included, and then official figures from all the other automakers, except for a couple others that also require some estimates. Aside from that, we are comparing year over year to 2022, 2021, the same period, and we're even going back in the big broad trends chart to Q3 2020. So,
wow.
we can just start with that actually. This is just showing how much the US EV, if these are full electric vehicles. We don't track plug-in hybrids, not necessarily because I'm prejudiced against them, although I am a bit, but because they've always been impossible to track in the US. They don't, automakers don't split out their plug-in hybrid sales from their gas sales of the same version model. So we focus on BEVs now that they're all like they're all their own model, and you can track that. But if you look at the growth over the past 4 years, you can see just very strong, consistent growth in the market. I have to scroll. This is maybe I should minimize. I'm not going to minimize this. You can see this just the Tesla end goes way off to the right here. I mean, sorry, the full electric and the all full electric vehicles on Q3, and all the hype about EV sales are dropping, EV demand is dropping, and I'm like, just shut up. Just shut up.
Look,
Like
that's
this is
wishful
Q3
thinking.
2023, and you can see how much higher the sales are than they were Q3 2022.
Yeah, that is wishful thinking from a lot of these, let's very generously say, podunk car dealerships that don't want to have to learn anything or change their ways or invest in their facilities. They just want to keep squeezing more and more blood out of their communities. That's not every dealer. Obviously, there's a lot of dealers that do it right. There's a lot of dealers that contribute back to their community. But unfortunately, it's the 10% of the dealers causing 90% of the problems. And that's what we hear about.
And I think the
Those
media,
guys, yeah, they
a
really
lot,
want the EVs to fail.
yeah, and a lot in the media like to jump on it. It's like, oh, do you think this story is EV sales growing? Actually, blah blah blah, they're dropping, and it's like,
No,
people
we
they
got to
love
have a
to flip the
conversation
script
about
on a,
this.
they love to flip the script on a trend and be like, oh, it's not happening what you think is happening. It's like, and so I think that's sort of what happened
Well, but
recently.
that's clickbaity stuff.
Yeah.
And what we've seen historically over the last year or two, unfortunately for us, because we're a media company and we'd love to have investors and people like that. But what we've seen is that groups like Vice, groups like BuzzFeed that live off of these edgy headlines, they all went bankrupt. And eventually, as we learn to read quality and people get older and smarter, they're going to see that those kind of clickbaity headlines are just nonsense. But I want to talk about something else. There's this phenomenon on the internet where, and it's almost always men with their
I'm
little
sitting here. I'm
bullshit
like,
fedoras.
where are we going
Here's
now?
where we're going. If you're starting your response to something with the word actually, and you're like, well, actually, and then whatever nonsense comes after that, you suck. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, actually, Joe, I think
Oh, I'm
so,
aware. I know the
so
score, baby.
Joe's like slipping this in. It's like, I know Zach says this from time to time. I'm gonna get him. No,
Yeah,
no,
no,
let's
it's not even Zach. It's the commenters, man. They're like, actually, I don't even respond to that. I just hit delete. I'm just like,
no.
delete comment.
It's funny. I learned at some point you're not supposed to start a sentence with you're not supposed to say of course because it makes you seem arrogant and rude
Of
and
course.
and and it always sticks with me, but there's times where I was like, well, it just of course, we know Tesla sales are strong, whatever. Like it just to me it just makes sense to say that
Yeah.
for something obvious because in my opinion, you're not assuming that the reader is an idiot. That's how I'm using
You're
it.
not
Like
assuming
like
that the
like of
reader's an
course
idiot.
you all
Right.
know, we all know Tesla sales are strong. But I'm always like afraid like do I come across as an arrogant jerk when I use of course? But but
But
I,
look,
I
man,
but
it's
that's
let me tell you something. You have these people on the right, these conservative guys, these dudes with high school educations listed in their social media bios, and even then you kind of wonder if they made it all the way through. And they're sitting there working on the sales floor, a car dealership. They don't know anything about tow ratings. They don't understand what gear ratios are. They think they have some vague understanding of what a limited slip does because they watched My Cousin Vinny 16 times. But like they have no clue, right? And these are the guys who are jumping on LinkedIn and jumping on social media saying, nobody wants to buy EVs. I've worked at this Ford dealer for 6 months and nobody's bought this Mach E. Like, well, is it because every time you try to talk to them, they go, man, this guy's an idiot and I want to go across town and buy from someone who's not completely
so
clueless and only has two great grandparents because his family tree is a wreath instead of a tree? Who knows? But it's
yeah.
Christmas time. It's the holidays. The wreath is totally appropriate. Let's move on.
Yeah, and so there's something I want to highlight here, but it just hit me. So we were just had this my daughter's had this tennis camp all week, and she got first place, by the way, in a
Woohoo!
Rafael Nadal Tennis Academy camp, and for her age group. But the one of the colleagues we met there came from Costa Rica, and
Ah,
I
qué
forgot
bueno,
the
otro
yeah.
tico.
We became great friends. We're like brothers from another mother. The dad would just really hit it off, and the mom drives an Audi e-tron. Just got it like
Nice.
6 months ago, and I was like, oh yeah, this is great talking. But that's sort of relevant here, sort of, because what I want to highlight with this chart is you can see the overall BEV sales growing year over year in Q3 in the
Yeah.
US, and it's like a consistent like a staircase. I mean, if you flip it. And
Yeah. Okay.
so if you look at the Tesla sales, they're also growing strongly year over year. But if you look at the non-Tesla full EVs, that's the third bar, in case it's hard to read that. You can see Q3 2020, pretty small. Q3 2021, okay, they doubled, but they're still
Yeah.
small. Q3 2022, not great. Oh, I need to fix that. This is not correct. It somehow ended up the same. Oh my. Well, Q3
I was gonna
2023.
say, is that the chip shortages? That seems right.
Yes, yes.
I don't even question it. I'm just like, yeah,
Q3
Zach's charts are usually
2023
good.
is just they're just they're getting they're getting big. So actually Q3 2023 of non-Tesla BEV sales were slightly above Q3 2022 Tesla sales,
Yeah.
which I think is a significant the market is really expanding. We're really seeing solid growth in this market, and sales are up
When do you
hugely.
think that other EV sales are going to surpass Tesla sales?
It's getting closer. I think Tesla sales, I don't know if I put it here. I think they were about 55% of the US market. I
Mm-hmm.
think maybe this quarter next year. That's what I would maybe guess.
Really? Okay.
Might be even, I mean, it could be even earlier. It depends on how well some of these models ramp up. So it's interesting to look, of course, the Model Y, of course, of course, the Model Y and Model 3 dominate the
Yeah.
market. They together account for almost precisely 50% of the US market. So really, if you, yeah, I mean, it's just the Model S and X, sales that bump it over. But then below that, you have the Chevy Bolt still going pretty strong, and Rivian is growing pretty well. The Ford Mustang Mach-E, which is I say, I mean, objectively, it's the top competitor to the Model Y because it's the top selling
Crossover.
vehicle in the same class. And then you get the Ioniq 5 and the ID.4 doing decent sales, respectable sales there. So I think that's, I mean, it would be interesting to see if any of those other brands further models further down could sort of catch up to those levels. But those are the ones carrying the water right now.
Yeah. Well, I think that this might be a good segue into the Cadillac story if you're ready to go to that. But I
Yeah,
know
we
we're not
can.
quite done.
Yeah, we can jump to that. There's uh, Cadillac Lyric, ironically, has like d
The biggest.
destroys the percentage growth because it had like trickle sales to start off
Yeah, exactly.
last year in that quarter, so it's just deceptive. Yeah, let's go move over there. There was one more thing I was gonna maybe highlight. Also just the
Model S sales are way down.
yeah, I thought it was interesting that Rivian and Hyundai EV sales are up pretty strongly compared to this third quarter last year. That's one thing that jumped out to me. I was like, wow, they're growing pretty nicely. I mean,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and the Aria and the Mustang Mach-E and the ID.4, all all doing solid growth. The BMW iX, the Mercedes
I
EQ.
would be really interested to see a year from now. So this time, 2024, make a note of this because we're going to talk about this. I want to see what Tesla's repeat business looks like because Tesla has enjoyed very, very strong 65, 66% repeat business over the last several years. And we've commented several times that without new models, what are they going to do to get people to renew their lease and stay within that Tesla ecosystem?
Yeah.
But now, in addition to them lacking new models, there are compelling vehicles that are out there. And especially in the case of Ford and soon to be the case of Volvo and a couple others, they're not even going to be able to say, well, we have the supercharger advantage. So I think it's
Yeah,
going to be
that's
really
big.
interesting a year from now if you've had a Model 3, maybe you're on your Model Y or it's your second Model 3 and you're looking to buy something else. Lord Elon keeps running his mouth on X and saying crazier and crazier things. More people are looking sideways at Teslas on the road because they think you're supporting the stuff that he's saying when you buy one. Are more and more people going to go? And I think in 4 or 5 years, we're not going to see that level of repeat business at Tesla. And I think even next year, it's going to drop below 60%, maybe 55%.
Yeah, I think I'm fascinated to see 1 year and 2 years from now what the market looks like. And like, I've had my Model 3 for 4 years. There's a lot of people in this cohort who have had 3, 4, 5 years, the Model 3. And we are, that's an earlier stage of adoption than you have people buying right now. There were a lot of, very progressive, very engaged people who are just have sworn off buying another Tesla. But aside from that, it's just interesting, like, whether you're that in that group or not, if
Yeah.
you've had the Tesla for 5 years or 6 years or 3 years even, and you're like, oh, I want to try something new, you can actually do it and get supercharging access in a year or
Yeah.
two. So it is
Well,
really, I think it's
let's
really interesting. Oh,
let's say one more thing that's going to impact Tesla's repeat business. In Europe, they are not seen as paragons of efficiency and reliability as many would have them be seen in the
yeah, let's
US.
go
And
to
we'll get
that.
to that
We'll get to
story.
that story next. But the only thing I wanted to finish with here was, or if is when I drive around, the vehicles I'm seeing more and more on the road are these vehicles, the Rivian, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, um, especially the Mercedes, all the Mercedes electrics, the Lightning, the and the IX as well. But those top two, like, so it's, I love when, my, limited one person real world experience is
Yeah.
matching with the data, because I'm like, okay, I'm not imagining it. There's a lot more people in Rivians and Ioniq
Yes.
5s.
I want to add to this, and I don't see it anywhere on this chart. I'm sure it's there. I just haven't found it. There's the Genesis, the GV70, and the G80 electric. And I think it's because where I am in Chicago, I'm in Oak Park, there is a Genesis dealer and there
Mhm.
is a Volvo dealer. So we see those in this neighborhood more frequently. Oak Park is a very politically active community. We talk about things like buying from stores within the community because we want the sales tax to support our schools and our kids
Oh,
and everything
look
else.
at
So there is a push, an emphasis on buying local, which would be Volvo, Genesis, things like that. So we are starting to see many more Genesis EVs in this neighborhood, but I think it's a microcosm. It's a weird microcosm. I think we probably might be the zip code with the most number
that.
of
Yeah, yeah,
Genesi
your
vehicles.
community doesn't count.
Yeah, we're weird. I get. I
No,
totally get it.
honestly, that's just one of the brands where they don't publish the model they don't, we don't have the data. It's like one of the only, and it's such a limited brand that it's okay, whatever. But
Yeah, I mean, like all 15 of them were sold in Oak Park. I get it.
yeah, so let's go to the reliability issue you were just touching on.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So in Germany, they do, or actually in Europe, throughout the EU, they have what's called the TUV. It's a little bit like the DOT, except they do quite a bit of standards testing. They do quite a bit of reader surveys and driver surveys, and they also do vehicle inspections. Like they kind of issue, vehicles. You have to pass the TUV crash test, for example, in order to be allowed to sell the vehicle. So all this stuff. So this year, I'll edit this part. This maybe not. We'll just let people see how we talk to each other.
Yeah, no, the
This
bloopers are the
year,
best.
the TUV reliability study had two big surprises. Surprise number one, and it's not a surprise to me because I'm a Tesla hater, but it's a surprise to everybody else, is that the Model 3 was absolutely dead last in terms of reliability, in terms of issues per 100,000 kilometers, in terms of issues per 10,000 kilometers, in terms of self-reported reliability. The drivers of the Model 3 in particular reported the most issues. And it's really important to note that this was not an EV issue. These issues did not carry across to other EVs. This was specific to the Model 3, the Hyundais, the Dacias, the Volkswagens. All of those EVs had reliability ratings that were comparable to internal combustion engines, internal combustion counterparts. I like the word cohort. So I'm going to say other vehicles within their classification or cohort did just as well, EV versus ICE, and the Model 3 in particular did badly. The second big surprise, and I don't know why this is a surprise, but I guess it is to many people, is that older vehicles with higher miles tended to be just as reliable as new vehicles with no miles, assuming that the owner of those vehicles did the regularly scheduled maintenance and did all of it. So if you're sitting there wondering whether or not your car could really use an oil change, or if it's really necessary to change the air filter, or swap out that CV boot, definitely put the money into it, because you're going to be able to get new car levels of reliability even on older cars. And they're going back to 2016, which I am horrified to say was 8 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's great points. The funny thing is, there's been, I think, probably a few videos where I was looking for that word cohort and I couldn't think of it. And I was gonna use something like group, and I was like, and then finally it hit me. What's the freaking word? Cohort, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's when
there's a
two or
couple,
more horts come together.
yeah, a couple interesting things here is one, they note that the most common failures with the Model 3, the lights, the brakes, and the axles. I'm curious about the age of the cars too, because I know obviously Tesla improved some things, but axles have been a problem here and there. We had a 2015 Model S that we shared for the Tesla shuttle company fleet, and in Poland and Europe, across Europe, and yeah, we had axle brake. We had like there was a like a failure light. It was like, oh, your motor, something wrong with your motor or something. And they took it to a shop in Poland, and there's like, oh, your battery fell down onto your or your motor fell. Yeah, well, I don't know. One of them had something had collapsed, and it was just like like I was like freak. But yeah, so anyway, that's rambling. You can cut that out.
Yeah, that was really rambly. So I think the part you're looking for was the drive axle goes into the upright. Probably the bearing that it goes into would have collapsed, and that would have solved it. That was a big problem with early Teslas, especially when guys kept taking them to the drag strip and hammering them.
Yeah, and our driver at the time was not particularly gentle on the car. Like one of his big benefits was he got to drive a Tesla around like a maniac. Um, it's
That's
like
not what you want out of your taxi
yeah,
driver.
no. But the lights, that's an interesting one. Haven't really heard much about issues with lights and the brakes. The funny thing with brakes is you need the brakes so little that Tesla didn't really splurge on the brake system. It's not a
Oh no,
great
yeah, and it
uh
gets worse and worse too because now there were allegations early part of last year that the performance package used the same rear brakes as the standard Tesla, just with a bigger cover over the caliper to make it look like bigger brakes. So yeah, it's been pretty sketchy in terms of what they invest into that hardware.
but I think for most of us, like I hardly touch the brakes. I think potentially in Europe there's more the cities and the driving culture. There might be more braking going on, which Tesla didn't take into account perhaps, and or the weather, the climate as well. I don't know, but in any case, the brakes, yeah, not the best. And a comment from a TUV SUD spokesperson: "We didn't expect the Tesla Model 3 to deliver such a poor result. It confirms our belief that electric vehicles also require regular maintenance." So I think that's an interesting point. Is they're emphasizing very heavily in this report, like your car will last a lot longer and have fewer issues if you have regular maintenance.
That's
And
it.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, what do you think about that with regards to Tesla and EVs? Like what regular maintenance do they need? Why do they need regular maintenance and what is it?
Oh my God. Well, here's the thing, right? And the Tesla guys who again, we've talked about this many times, are not really car guys. They have a fanatical distrust of car dealerships. Almost to a man, every single Tesla owner I've talked to is like, "Isn't this great? I don't have to go to the dealership anymore. I'm not getting ripped off. I don't have to go there for service and oil changes." But one of the things that they don't really understand is that those
Why are you
annual,
quoting me when I'm right here in front of you? I'm just kidding.
you know,
No,
man,
no,
I
I
just
didn't say that, but that's an issue beyond. I think maybe you have different friends. I think that's the feeling beyond the Tesla community. That's the general population, how they
yeah, I
feel.
think that's the general population. But what I think is,
That's not me. You're
so
not
so let
quoting me.
me tell you why I disagree with your statement that that's the general population. 94%, let's say, maybe let's just say 90. I know it's more than 90. I don't think it's
Is
quite
this a stat
95.
you're making up?
No. This is real.
Okay.
What percentage of the total new car market is direct to consumer?
Yeah,
5?
but there's not an option for direct
Hang
consumer.
on. Sure, there is. Tesla is direct to consumer. Rivian is direct to consumer.
Yeah,
Lucid is okay. Okay,
but if you
hang on.
buy any other vehicle, you're getting it through a dealership. I mean,
But
there's
this
no
is my
choice. If
point.
I want an
No,
ID.4, I got to
no.
get it from a
That's a
dealership.
choice. That's a choice. You're making the choice to say, I would rather go to a dealer than buy a Tesla. I would rather go to a dealer than buy a Rivian. And 90+% of Americans still make that choice willingly.
Yeah,
So
but
I
because
don't
they
think
want
it's
that
fair. I
vehicle.
don't think that's real. I think that's echo chamber thinking.
No, I mean, I do 100% it's going to be reinforced because it's something that sets Tesla apart from the beginning. So 100% it's going to be something that Tesla fans highlight. It's like, oh, you don't have to go to a dealership, you know. If Volkswagen tomorrow didn't have dealerships, there'd be plenty of people also congratulating Volkswagen for that. But of course, impossible. It's not legal for them to not have dealerships. So yeah, let's just okay. We got the
I think that's
dealership,
fair, but
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 let's
let's
get
go.
back to
Let's get back to
the
the point.
question
Let's get
about
back to the
regular
point.
maintenance. Yeah.
So when you take your vehicle in for a dealer for a regular maintenance, which in internal combustion most people think is an oil change, they think maintenance equals oil change. Some of the things that they do involve air filters, they involve inspections, they involve checking the brake pads, they involve checking the shocks and everything else. And those inspections have value. When the mechanic comes back to the service advisor and says, "Hey, I found this, and this. This is what the alignment looks like. This is what the tire wear looks like." And then the service advisor does their job and presents to the customer, "These are the things that we think need to be done." the first thing in the customer's mind is, I just came here for an oil change. You guys are ripping me off. No, that's essential work that needs to go into maintenance. And if you don't do that recommended maintenance, you're going to have a crappier vehicle experience than someone who did. So we'll just leave that there. The second thing is, it is not true that electric vehicles do not have fluids, do not have drivetrains, do not have transmissions. If you look at the Audis and Volkswagens, they do have transmissions, which have transmission fluid. If you look at virtually every EV, except for the Nissan Leaf and like the iMiev and the early Kia Soul EV, they all have cooling systems, radiator systems for the batteries. That fluid needs to be checked. Sometimes it's going to need to be changed. And if you live in a situation where you have an extreme condition, and in most cases, historically, extreme conditions are temperatures over 90 degrees for several days, temperatures under 20 degrees for several days. If you live in the Midwest, if you live in Canada, every one of your vehicles is faced with extreme conditions, which means that when you look in your owner's manual or you download the PDF, because nobody has an owner's manual anymore, and they say this are the recommended maintenance for extreme conditions, if it says change the oil every 6 months, get an inspection every 6 months, and you're doing it once a year, you're not doing the recommended maintenance. You're just not. So this idea that because electric vehicles don't have any moving parts, which is obviously nonsense, and therefore they require less maintenance, that is true. They require less oil changes. They typically wear more slowly. They do not have the kind of driveline and drivetrain wear and tear that internal combustion vehicles do. Shocks and struts, they have more wear and tear. Tires, they typically have more wear and tear than their ICE cohort. If you look at the shocks, brakes, suspensions, they typically wear out more quickly. And you can say, well, they have regenerative braking, so you don't need to touch the brakes. That's absolutely true. However, when the normals who are completely clueless, who don't even understand what 87 and 93 octane means for their gas car, you're trying to get them to convert to EVs. When they do, they're not going to drive it, at least not initially. They're not going to drive it the way that an EV should be driven. They're not going to understand one pedal driving. They're going to do what they've always done. They're going to ride the brakes. They're going to stomp on the brakes for no reason on the interstate. They're going to screw up the drive-through at McDonald's. They're going to leave more than, by the way, if you leave more than 6 feet between yourself and the car in front of you at the drive-through, and I am ever elected emperor, I will have you put to death. There's no reason for that. You're not going to escape the drive-through line. If a meteor comes and hits, you're not going to get away. Just pull up to the bumper of the car in front of you. If you don't know where the bumper of the car in front of you is, turn in your driver's license. You should not be on the road, certainly not behind the wheel of a 900 horsepower Tesla.
Feel like we've gone off the rails here.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're way off the rails. But the point
Okay,
is,
so
take the car to the dealership and do what they tell you, or it's going to go bad.
Okay, three things here. So one, I disagree with you on there's no moving parts, no drivetrain. I mean that there's moving parts in a drivetrain. These vehicles run on unicorn farts and they hover over the road. So first of all, you're wrong, Joe. Just admit it.
Darn it. I hate being wrong.
Secondly, Joe was like, "Oh no, I'm ready." He was getting ready for a fight when I said you're wrong. I was like, "No." Secondly,
Okay, it's Saturday. I'm ready to wrap this thing up and go shopping. Let's go.
Oh, we're having
Do
fun,
it.
man. I thought you were gonna say let's just keep going. Yeah. So, secondly, it used to be the case like early on, Tesla required an annual maintenance check to have your warranty valid. Like you would lose your warranty if you didn't have an annual maintenance check. It didn't last long because people were like, "What the heck? I don't need maintenance. Why you force me to do this? Wasting my money, wasting my time." And I don't know if it was also like Tesla decided, "Oh, we don't really need it. It's just it's not worth the cost. Let's just let people do their own thing." So I don't know. They work it in a little bit, but the third thing then is my question, and like that was like ancient. That was like, I don't know, that was like 10 years ago or 11. Yeah, I don't know when they stopped doing that. It was like 9 or 10 years ago. But the other thing, so my question is, how much, if you bring it in for a maintenance check, can they check the axles, the shocks, the struts to see if something is on the verge of happening? Like how much can they do preventive checking on those components, especially because they highlight axles as one of the big failure points in the Model 3? Or how much is it like you don't see it until it's too late with these components.
Oh, you can see quite a bit. So you can see if so for example, there's rubber and urethane bushings. You can see if they're starting to crack. You can see if they're starting to dry out. They tend to change color. They get kind of whitish and brittle. And they'll do that long before they fail. There's also, within the shocks, if they're liquid filled shocks, you can check for moisture at the top. You can basically check to see if they're breaking, if there's hairline cracks. You can see that as well. And a lot of that comes, especially in the Midwest, a lot of those rubber lines and fuel lines and things, which obviously the Tesla doesn't have, but the rubber shocks and things like that, a lot of that starts to wear, and those bushings and urethane start to wear because they're packed with salt and ice all winter, because people don't wash their car in the winter. If I could like just scream at everybody and say one thing about how to make your car last, it is wash your freaking car. Get the salt and mud and silt and gross cranberry juice that now they're doing because it's greener than salt. Get all of that stuff off of your vehicle. Clean your vehicle during the winter, and you will have a much better experience with your long life vehicle.
All right, great stuff. I just want to reiterate, if you are appreciating the expertise, the deep, diverse, and fun expertise of this show, please don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button.
Twice in one show? I don't think
Oh,
that
dude, I was gonna do it like
that's a
five
lot.
times. I'm gonna catch up,
Yeah, that's
make
fine.
up for all the times we forgot. So yeah, I mean, just
We
don't
should run Scott's promo
subscribe,
now.
subscribe to us.
Yeah.
I mean,
Also send us money.
I English speak. Yes,
Yeah.
subscribe us. Yeah, sure, we can run the promo. Here's Scott's promo,
Beep.
reminding you to be a supporter.
My name is Scott Cooney. I started Clean Technica to promote clean energy and other sustainable alternatives, and for 13 years, we've been moving markets. If we had a nickel for every time someone told us they bought their first EV, solar, e-bike, or fill in the blank clean energy solution, we'd be a cable TV channel by now. But we don't get those nickels. So unfortunately, we could use your help to reach a few more people. If just 1% of our audience chipped in a few bucks a month, we could hire dozens of great journalists and promote all sorts of climate solutions. It's easy. Just go to cleantechnica.com/support and sign up with a credit card in seconds. Cancel anytime. But we'll be sending out some cool perks too, so I think you'll want to stick around. With your support, we'll keep leading the charge. Thank you so much.
Beep, beep, beep. Hi, I'm Scott Cooney. It's like Spartacus. I'm Scott Cooney. I am Scott Cooney.
I'm Scott Cooney.
That's it. We're all Scott Cooney now.
All right, so now we're on to Zeekr, the Zeekr 007. We talked about this recently, which I remember because I was just wondering about if they are playing on the Bond culture on purpose. This definitely looks like a vehicle Bond could drive. It's very cool.
Bond would never drive anything so
What's
gauche.
what's the news from Zeekr now?
So the news from Zeekr now is their new 007 vehicle has been shown. They've got a 100 kilowatt hour battery that's good for 870 kilometers of range. I'm no mathematologist, but I think that's over 400 miles.
I actually did the math to get ready for
Look
this
at
because I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do
you.
this live. We got the minimum is 688 kilometers or
The minimum, yeah.
428 miles,
So
and the
this is
max is
what everybody
870 kilometers,
claims.
540 miles.
Yeah, this is what everybody claims EVs need to do in order to reach mainstream adoption. They need to have 400 miles of range and charge in 15 minutes. And this vehicle will give you an 80% charge in about 15 minutes. It's a 4.5C battery. So 4.5C means cycles per hour. So it's a little bit less than 15 minutes. So, I mean, this ticks all the boxes, right? It's kind of minimalistic, but it's got enough going on to be fun. It's got a good looking style to it. I don't know about the yellow. I think maybe a silver or dark gray or maybe even a blue would be nice. But the yellow is certainly, you won't lose that thing in the parking lot. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's got it's funny because the steering wheel is not quite round, but it's not as extreme as the
Yeah,
others we've
it's
seen.
yoky.
They've got they've got the it's a little bit like this. It's closest to the Cybertrucks, but the Cybertruck is more this is closer to a normal steering wheel shape. It's got the display behind the steering wheel like the Model S and X have, but the Model 3 and Model Y don't have the screen in the middle. Yeah, it looks very nice and luxurious, very clean. I love the interior. I mean, wow, it's one of my favorite interiors for sure. The car looks wicked cool. I would like a different color on it. But yeah, so yeah, we now have the battery sizes, and it just looks all around like a very attractive, appealing vehicle. The news actually comes from Kazakhstan, which apparently we pronounce differently, and you had a big issue with it before the show.
Kazakhstan. Yeah. Well, I think we should ask the readers, how do you pronounce Kazakhstan? Is it Kazakhstan or is it whatever the hell Zach is saying?
Kazakhstan.
So I and understand that my only source for this is Borat. I have no
Yeah.
idea how to pronounce this.
I had a
I'm gonna go with Borat.
Kazakhstani girl in my grad school, but I don't remember if I ever talked to her. She didn't really speak much English.
Boriana is Borat's sister.
She was married to a pilot, so I think she was always flying around somewhere. Yeah, so this is also Zeekr news. This is the fun, exciting stuff. Like, this is wicked. So
this is really neat. So Zeekr in China, you know, we talk about the Chinese cars and the technology that they have over there being way, way, way ahead of what most automakers in the US are talking about. It's not to say that the US automakers don't have stuff like this, not to say that they're not working on stuff like this, but they certainly haven't announced it yet. So this is an 800-volt, quote unquote, golden battery. They have done some pretty extreme testing on this. And the point of this is thermal regulation, keeping the battery safe. And what they have done is they've created this system of thermal regulation that really prevents the kind of runaway thermal events that lead to fires. And to show off how good this system is, they have allegedly, and again, this is, you know, who knows, they have allegedly taken one of these batteries, put it into a negative 45 degrees Celsius zone. So it's, you know, cold. Then they've taken it out and put it into 1,000-degree Celsius, basically exposed it to a heavy duty torch, a heavy duty heating element for 8 hours, and then put it back in the car, and the battery still worked. That is incredible if it's true. If even half of that is true, it's incredible, because
that's insane.
It's getting warm out there, folks. Global warming, climate change. You might have 1,000-degree Celsius commute one day. It'll be nice to know your battery still holds up.
I mean, it's pretty insane. 8 hours in minus 45 degrees Celsius, 8 hours in 1,000-degree.
I don't even want to spend 8 hours in something that feels good.
Exactly. But my question is, isn't it expensive to plate a huge battery like this in gold?
It's probably not in the way that you think, because this
you don't think it's real pure gold?
No, it's pure gold, but it's microns thin. It's like a gold.
Is it really?
Leaf. Yeah, it's.
I thought it was thin. I thought they were talking about the color.
No, that's gold.
They
that's
actually have thin, flaky gold over it?
That's for sure gold. The thermal properties of gold have made it highly, highly useful throughout motorsports. Like if you look in the back end of the McLaren F1, the original V12 BMW F1, there's a ton of gold leaf in there, and it's because of that thermal management. You're starting to see that in some like high-end video graphics cards and things like that. This is where urban mining, you know, the term urban mining really comes into play, because, and you can search this on YouTube, there's guys that will take, you know, motherboards, and they will boil off the copper and boil off the gold, and they'll create jewelry out of stuff that they've just urban mined from urban technological waste.
Okay, there's no mention here that it's actually gold.
I guarantee you. I stake your reputation on this. As Scott Cooner, I recognize my reputation on this.
We will publish a retraction if this is incorrect.
We will say that.
No, we won't, but we'll talk about it again.
We'll talk about it again. But I mean, I think this Scott Cooner guy is onto something. This is definitely gold.
Well, that's very cool. Well, it's a wicked big advancement. They have some info here, which obviously we can't read, but we know from the other info. So you can see the 15, the number 15 there, and it's in the article here. The in 15 minutes is what it's saying. In 15 minutes, how much miles can you add? And the Zeekr can add over, kilometers, can add over 500 kilometers in 15 minutes of charging.
Which is huge, which is a huge
number. There's the 800-volt G9 is also impressive, but it's way down at $399. So the Zeekr 007 is really in a league of its own.
Well, hang on. That G9 is like that thing is built on the same platform as the Edmund Fitzgerald. That thing is enormous. You could probably land a safari aircraft on the roof of it. So for that thing, that behemoth, that land yacht, that marine mammal, to put on 400 kilometers of range in 15 minutes is absolutely staggering. The 007 is not even in the same league as that.
Yeah, and this is just getting,
mass.
I mean, I'm one of the ones who says like you don't need as much as fast of charging as you think. Like
Correct.
I wish the charging state, the fast charger behind my grocery store was a little bit slower, so I wouldn't have to rush through the store so much. Although it probably helps prevent impulse buys, some impulse buys. Although rushing would add to the impulse buy. So I don't know. We'll do the calculus later. But yeah, the point is, this is getting to a level like it doesn't need to go any higher. Like
it doesn't need to go any
this
higher.
is ridiculous.
But it will.
But it will.
This is the main thing that you need to understand when we talk about EVs is the technology is going to continue to advance, and all of the complaints that the naysayers have today are going to get better. Think about the original. If you don't remember the original iPhone, go find someone who has like an iPhone 3. Somebody's grandfather still has one. Fire that thing up and compare it to the iPhone 15 that you got now from your titanium Verizon lease plan or something. It is staggering how bad those old phones used to be. And we think of them as like mostly the same, right? Like that's the joke.
Right, exactly.
So by the time we get into third and fourth generation mainstream EVs, by the time we get into like the third generation Hyundai Ioniq 5, it's none of the complaints that you have today are going to matter at all.
Yeah, and of course they highlight, you have to have fast chargers that will give you that. So they've got we're talking about these 800 kilowatt V3 super fast chargers. Pretty crazy stuff. Those are just bonkers, crazy numbers. Speaking of fast charging, we've got a story in the US. Volvo, ChargePoint, and Starbucks opening up their first stations in a new EV charging network. You want to rant about this? I think it's cool.
I have a really
it's like what
quick
Mercedes
rant
is
about
doing.
this.
Mercedes has bought these ChargePoint stations that they're branded as Mercedes stations. They're locating them really nicely, making the stations really nice. So this is a bit of a similar deal. Volvo and Starbucks are teaming up to make nice Volvo, Starbucks branded fast chargers using ChargePoint's technology. And I just think it's cool. I think people will be drawn to that. They'll like that. They'll be like, oh, they won't have a clue that it's a ChargePoint station. They'll be like, or well, maybe they will because I think you use the app still. But they'll be like, oh yeah, I love that Starbucks Volvo stations. Like they're better than the other ones. They're the same thing with a different branding.
That's right. The reason I have an issue with this is because Volvo has plenty of plug-in models, and the speed of charging that they are advertising. When they first announced this last November, because they announced this at Electrify Expo Industry Day, where I was the MC and we all had our networking group. That was when they did the announcement, and they had at that time 0 vehicles that could take advantage of those high-speed chargers and get you to 80% within 20 minutes as they advertise. Now they have like one. They have the C40, I believe, rear-wheel drive, long range or something. So it's a little bit disingenuous, but it's less likely to be an issue now because we have the EX90, the EX30 coming out. And even though those aren't out yet, as soon as they land, they're going to be, they're going to be capable of making the most out of this product. So it's going to be really exciting.
You can see this is in the Northwest, Washington, Oregon, then you got Idaho, Utah, Colorado. So this kind of mountain and Northwest region. So good for them. I wish I could see one here in Florida, but maybe eventually. We'll see.
Well, funny enough, our guy Brandon Boggs, who used to do our video reviews, he was in Seattle and he checked out the flagship one, and he plugged in his car and said it charged up fine. So I guess they work.
Cool. That's good. Yeah, Brandon's awesome. Love Brandon.
Brandon.
So
he's great.
I don't have much to say about this. Jennifer had a bit to say about it, which we'll touch on, but GM has announced another Cadillac electric vehicle crossover.
Another stupid Q name.
Why is Q so big? And oh my gosh, and then you think about the QAnon. You got that.
There's some guy over in Cadillac
Ioniq with Q.
Yeah. He goes, if we have IQ in the name, people will think that driving it means you have a high IQ. No,
Uh,
this is
well,
the
it's a
nonsense.
Vistique. There's also the lyric, or I don't know, is Vistique or Vistic? I don't know what it's supposed to be
Well, it's
pronounced.
not a real word, so it doesn't matter.
Sometimes they care how you pronounce it. Yeah, but
Sure, they do.
it's another, and Jennifer's point, her argument is like, we have enough luxury electric crossovers. We need more affordable vehicles. So that's her
I
criticism. But I
disagree
mean,
with
it's
that.
Cadillac, so
Yeah,
like
I
Cadillac's
disagree
not going
with
to
her
produce.
take. I mean, economies of scale are a real thing, and the diffusion of innovations is a real thing. If you're in an MBA program, if you're in a business class and you don't understand the words diffusion of innovation, go smack your guidance counselor. Find the book and read it. And what it says primarily is that as these expensive vehicles get into production and get into more hands, the economies of scale make it such that the costs to produce an individual version go down. Now, what Cadillac or GM is trying to do here is they're trying to produce the most profitable versions of these Ultium products first, so that they can profitably produce less expensive models. It is not the case that, you can very quickly and on day one produce a profit on the products you sell. There is something called amortization of products. So if you put $1 million into R&D and manufacturing and site layout and ramp up to build a product, the first one you sell is negative $1 million profit. The second one you sell is negative, 500. You amortize that cost of investment throughout that production run. So what GM is trying to do is, by the time they launch the Chevy version, they want to make sure that they're profitable so they can sell the Chevy versions at that $40,000 or $45,000 price point. So this is a good thing for everybody. I think it's a necessary part of this capitalistic thing that we're all doing. Obviously, we would love to all be playing a different game. We could all be playing communism, but instead we're playing capitalism, and that means profit motive is what we're all about. And that means we got to make the most expensive version first. So we had the Hummer, then we had the announcement of the Silverado. We have these Cadillac Lyrics, that super expensive, ridiculous Cadillac Celestique or whatever. Again,
Oh,
not a
that's
real
the other
word.
one. Yeah, Celestique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's a necessary evil. I don't agree with Jennifer's take. I think that the way to get $25,000 and $30,000 EVs is to prove out the technology and ramp up your economies of scale on these expensive ones, which is what Tesla does, which is what every other EV manufacturer, with the exception of Nissan, did. And what ended up happening at Nissan was they built a weird little mushroom car that not a whole ton of people wanted.
Yeah, I have a lot to say now, but I want to start with a little rant. So it's actually funny that the Cadillac is, we have Cadillac ads on this article at the moment as we're looking at this, which these come from Google. This is just, we don't have any, we just have a Google ad thing, and Google sends whatever ads they want. So we don't, if people are not aware, we're not really like choosing, oh yeah, we want Cadillac on here. It just happens. But I think it's funny. Of course, it's fitting, it's good, but it's funny also how you don't see that often, that there's an ad for the car company on the page about that car company's cars. And it seems like something like Google should have mastered by now. Like, Google's supposed to be so smart and good with their AI. It's like you would think by now any
Don't say
article
bad
about
stuff about Google, dude.
we're
We're
dead.
subject to the algorithm.
Goodbye, Clean
All
Technica.
hail Google.
No,
Google Mania 7. We're there.
but you would think by this point, 2023, like any article about an Audi would have Audi ads on the page from Google. It's like it's sort of funny, but I don't know if it's an improvement or it's just it's a bit of a luck.
I think there are so few people on Clean Technica searching for Cadillacs that the algorithm is just like, oh, we need to advertise to these people. They're not going to find it otherwise.
Yeah, I don't know, but now back on topic.
Also,
So
is that why my Clean Technica just shows a bunch of ads for plus size bikini models?
that's something else going on. So the on the one hand, like Cadillac sells vehicles, and the more they need to electrify. So I mean, we need EV Cadillacs as well, obviously, but I think also it crossed my mind as you were talking, like it makes a big difference for people going into a Cadillac dealer or thinking about a Cadillac if there are several EV options.
Yes.
And we see that especially now with Mercedes and Audi, which have like 6 to like 9 versions, like 6, like a bunch of different models that you could lump together or you separate. They separate them. Like, so you got the EQE sedan, the EQE SUV, the EQS sedan, the EQS SUV, the EQB, the EQ, so Mercedes has all these different options. Audi does similar with all their e-trons, all their different e-trons. And they're doing really well with this approach. Like, they're actually, like, none of their models are, of course, like top of the charts, but you add them all up and they're doing really well and they're growing really well. So I think this approach has proven to be very effective for saying, you know, hey, you want to buy a Mercedes, you should obviously get an electric one. There's 8 options here. Choose the one that fits you best. In contrast to, like, oh, we've got this one EV if you want an EV. Otherwise, there's these normal options. And I think it just tells the customer, it informs them, subconsciously or indirectly, like, oh, you want a Mercedes, you want a BMW, you want a Audi, you want a Cadillac, so you want an electric one, and you just
Right.
take your pick from these many options we have. And I think it's really just strong. And I feel like most of the Mercedes I see on the road now are electric. Like, I know that's not the case, but I see so many, and you can identify them from their grill, or if you're on the back, it starts with an E. I'm like blown away. I'm like, wow, everybody who buys a Mercedes now is switching to electric. Like, this is great. And similar with some of the other brands to a bit, to an extent,
but
but I think
hang
more so
on.
Mercedes.
Hang on. I don't think that's right. So if you're behind a Mercedes and you see an E350, that's not electric. That's an
No,
E-Class.
no. The EQ.
Oh, the EQ, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of those. There's the
Again, it's a freaking Q.
yeah. There's something going on
Why?
here.
Oh my gosh.
Somebody has EQ, IQ. Somebody's got some kind of weird idea going, but I don't know, man. God bless them. I hope they sell. Next.
They're like QAnon. We should all throw Q in.
Oh,
Oh
this
my
is the
gosh.
best story.
And now we're gonna get banned from the YouTube algorithms because we mentioned these conspiracies. Can you edit
Killing
that
me
out?
with this. We
Edit
just
that out.
started to get some traction. We got new
Uh-oh.
subscribers. Our
Okay.
last 3 videos were over 4,000, and now you're talking about conspiracies, Kazakhstan, anti-Google rants. Come on, we're going to be on every watch list there is.
So this is our last story of the day.
This is great. This is an ID.Buzz camper kit that you can buy and literally just slide this into the back of your EQ, or I'm sorry, not your EQ, because that's what I'm still thinking. I'm so enraged by the Q names. You can roll this right into the back of your VW ID.Buzz minivan, and you can go camping. And it's got a little bed. It's got a weather protected little outdoor kitchen there. Look at that, man. That is so cool. Running water, keeps all that stuff there. So you can really go out and have a nice little camping experience. And I don't even really think this qualifies as glamping because you're just sleeping in the back of your minivan. So
the funny thing is, Kyle Field, one of our longtime writers, he put this himself into his Model Y. It looks like, he visited me last year, and it looks to me like the same exact thing. Like
there's a couple of companies doing stuff like this, and I think they're all really fun. They're all tapping into this idea of getting back out into nature, which I have always kind of maintained that if you wanted to really appreciate nature and build a love for this planet, the main thing you should do is get out into it and go experience it. That's why I've never had a problem with dirt bikes or ATVs or anything, because if you go out and really appreciate nature and get out there and have fun outdoors, it's really hard to come back without an appreciation for those wild spaces. And I think this is just perfect for that. You're taking this thing to Yosemite,
my perspective, like,
this is awesome.
Yeah, I've always felt like if you want to really appreciate and protect nature, you should sit at home playing video games all day. That's different opinion.
Different opinion. All right, I think we close this out. There's not really much to add to this. It's
Joe, he's like, oh, I'm so done with you.
Saturday. This is according to my union contract, this is time and a half. So
well,
keep talking. That's fine with me.
Okay, the only thing which I love this. No, I mean
Teamsters.
being genuine and honest for a change. I love this. I love the idea. But how much do you think this? How much do you think this specifically and more broadly, all these variations on the Buzz that they're doing are going to stimulate sales and grow this model's success?
Zero. I think such a small percentage of people are going to buy this. I think, don't get me wrong, I think they'll sell, 500 to 1,000 of these every year, which is going to be great for them. And I think it's going to be a sustainable business for them, but it's not going to influence. It's not going to influence.
And I should say, I mean, this is from
sales, I think.
Tonk. This is not from Volkswagen. I'm not saying Volkswagen is trying.
Yeah,
to.
I don't think it's going to really influence sales. I don't think
Well,
anybody's going to go out and say, I have to buy an ID.Buzz because I'm going to take it camping in my camper shell. I don't think there's going to be a lot of that.
All right. All right. Have a good weekend, Joe. Appreciate it. I'll just call you later to waste your time on other stuff.
I thought you might.
Have a good weekend.
All right,
Cheers.
brother. Have a good one. Bye.